Right then, you take a look at the top four odds. If you fancy Manchester United, they are 15-1 to close the gap to Aston Villa, who of course currently sit 11 points ahead of Ten Hag's side. The big talking point over the last 24 hours is who could come in, who is the preferred manager. Let's welcome in Mark Ogden. Mark, give us that top three list.
Well, it's not a top three list, it's a list of names that they are considering. There's more than three names in it, I've been told, but the three I've been told today are Roberto De Zerbi, Thomas Frank and Gareth Southgate. Now, all different managers, and the other managers that might be out there that are potentially on the list, Graham Potter, Zinedine Zidane, they're all different types of managers, and some will go elsewhere. You know, the problem United have got this summer is that if they do make a change with Ten Hag, Barcelona, Bayern Munich and Liverpool are also looking for new managers. So it's a really congested field, and if they make a change and it's not been completely decided that Ten Hag will go, they have to be in a position to hire a manager. So I think right now what it is, they've got a regime that's come in to take control of football operations who've never appointed a manager before. They've got Sir Dave Brailsford, who's a cycling guy. They've got Dan Ashworth coming in. They've got Omar Barada coming in from Man City, but unlikely any will be there before the start of next season. So they have to address this situation with the manager before the end of the season, because Ten Hag has got a year left of his contract this summer, and they can't go into next season with him not being given a new contract, because that would look a massive lack of faith in Ten Hag. So they've got a mess. They've got a mess to deal with, and obviously, let's be honest, Ten Hag's results, the performances, the tactics, there's not really a lot in Ten Hag's favour right now. So everything is pointing towards a change of manager. But another issue they have to contend with as well is the cost of getting rid of Ten Hag and the cost of hiring a new guy if he's under contract. So they've got all these little issues flying around, which is why they've got such a strange list of potential candidates, which they're assessing all their availability, their suitability, and you know, if they end up with Gareth Southgate, I'd be very surprised, but he's on that list because he could be available this summer.
Bonkers, isn't it? I mean, Roberto De Zerbi, right, he's come in, he's great reputation. They've been a bit topsy-turvy this season.
They've had a bad run.
They've had a bad run. They're having a great run in Europe, right, which is obviously for Brighton. It's a completely different story for them, the European competition. His league form has been patchy, particularly recently. And I think Thomas Frank has done a great job at Brentford, right? The way they recruit down there, how they use the analytics and all that sort of stuff. And I know he was upset at the weekend because his fans were booing when they were behind against Chelsea. And he's like, hey, guys, you know, how far have we come? Sort of stuff. But for me, he's not a Man United manager. I'm sorry, that's a big step. And Gareth Southgate, right, you can forget that. I mean, you can.
They build a nice environment.
you can forget. I mean, he's done great with England, don't get me wrong, but you can forget that. So I think even for me, being a big De Zerbi fan, even that for me at the moment is a stretch.
So who?
Wow, that's a big. That's the question. I don't really know at the moment who else. I mean, Zinedine Zidane is not moving to Manchester.
No, that's right. Xabi Alonso's definitely not going.
No, he's going there.
No. Goodbye, Bayern. Bye, Liverpool.
You say 9. What about Thomas Tuchel?
Thomas Tuchel is actually...
I'd almost take him, even though I would...
Experience-wise, surely.
I would take him over all those in that list.
Those three.
Even though I think, you know, obviously Bayern won yesterday, but Lazio were not very good.
But he's managed top clubs.
He has been there, seen it and done it, but again, his stock has fallen.
Yes.
But my God, he has to be better than what's on that list.
Graham Potter?
No. Sorry, Graham Potter had his chance at Chelsea. He didn't take it.
But other people have failed at Chelsea.
Other people have been successful at Chelsea as well.
Not since the new regime came in, Robert. That's harsh.
Yeah, but I think he was the first one of the new regime, wasn't he?
Well, yes, but then you judge him by that.
Yeah. From what I could see, he didn't have control of the players. The players didn't seem to want to play for him. He messed around with the tactics. He messed around with the team. As a manager, you've got to deal with what you're given, and he didn't do that. I don't think at Chelsea.
So you would go Tuchel?
I would go Tuchel. I'm not a great fan of Tuchel in terms of his mannerisms and the way he talks to the press and all that sort of stuff, but he did well at Chelsea for a good year and a half. He won the Champions League with them. He's done well at other clubs. He was at PSG, so he's dealt with big players. He plays a decent style of football. So for me, Thomas Tuchel, out of all those, as you said, is the best one available.
But he has been awful at Bayern.
Well, yes, he has. And I think handling the environment of Bayern Munich. He has had difficulties with the politics of Bayern Munich. So I imagine that there are politics in Manchester United as well. I don't know why we're talking about a new manager for Manchester United. 10 days ago, we were talking about Manchester United turning the corner. Oh, look at this team is flying. Look at all the results they're getting and this and that and the other. And frankly, when you look deeply into Manchester United, you know that they're deeply flawed. And Ten Hag is at the core of all of this. In terms of who makes a decision to go to Manchester United right now, you have to have somebody who has had a fall from grace. And I think Thomas Tuchel at Bayern Munich has had a fall from grace.
And one of the reasons we're talking about Erik Ten Hag is because of the things he said after the Manchester City game. You know, we played well. We nearly won the game.
Yeah,
those sort of things turn the fans off. It turns maybe the board off. We didn't play well.
And the players, by the way, because the players must have been thinking, no, we didn't. Yeah. No, they were knocking the ball around us, and we were barely hanging on and hoping that we could see this game out, and there was never a chance.
We looked at the stats on here a couple of weeks ago before the Fulham game, and we looked at the stats because people were getting carried away. Yeah. And we said, here's the results that you're getting carried away with, and here's the actual facts of the game. And United barely have ever controlled a game, right? And every team they've played
against supposedly opposition.
Against inferior opposition, getting dominated in the middle of the park. Onana's having to make save after save after save, and we said, this can't last, and it won't last. And it's pie in the sky stuff to think they'll even catch Tottenham, never mind Aston Villa. You know, Villa would have to lose 4 or 5 games, and United would have to win almost every game between now and end of the season. The problem is you're not going to be able to... You can change the manager at the moment, right, or whenever you want to change him. But it's going to take you time to get some of these wasters out of the club, right? And so in that time frame, while you're trying to get rid of the wasters that are in the playing squad, if you bring a manager in who's weak and who hasn't got the experience of being at a big club like this, they're going to continue to throw these people under the bus. So there has to be some element of strength as well as forward vision to who you're going to appoint.
But we mentioned Chelsea. No matter what manager they bring in, they don't seem to be able to get a tune out of this squad. Are Manchester United in danger of going down the same route because of the personnel they have within their team, that they're just not good enough? So it doesn't matter who you bring in as a coach.
Well, they're going to have to make personnel changes in the playing front. There is just absolutely no doubt about that. And I know Marcus Rashford scored a great goal at the weekend, but he'd be one of the first in the bus out the door. Get on the bus, son, don't come back. If I could get money from him, and there's a list of them. But that's going to be difficult. But again, I go back to the argument. There is a slight argument against it in terms of, with Chelsea this season and others, is that what, to a certain extent, Postecoglou has done at Tottenham.
Right.
Because, let's be honest, would they finish 8th last season? Right, they might not get in the top 4. They might or they might not. But they finished 8th. They had the best striker in Europe, who, by the way, is still scoring goals for fun at Bayern. And they were absolutely wretched to watch. They don't have that player now. They're playing some of the best football in the Premier League, all right, they've had some ups and downs, and they've got a chance of getting in the top 4. So I think it's difficult all the time to say, well, this manager can't do more with this group of players. There is an element of the...
Alonso's a great example.
With the manager.
Alonso's a great example. Well, when he went to Leverkusen, they were second from bottom.
Yeah.
And he must have gone in there, and everybody probably said, and you would be doing the games, they've got poor players. Leverkusen aren't a good team. He comes in and he turns things round immediately, and they're now going to win the title. So a manager can have a massive, effect on a team. It's difficult, but they can have a massive effect on the team.
So you see how he pointed the finger at me that I said?
Yeah, you said.
Mark, who would you choose?
Wow, it's a tough. I mean, I like Tuchel as well, but I think we've had this conversation now for maybe the last 5 years, the last 3 managers. The players are letting them down. The players need clearing out. They never get cleared out. Victor Lindelof's been there 8 years. Luke Shaw, 10 years. Lots of players that have been there through serious different managers. Now, nothing seems to change. So whoever comes in, yes, they'll press the reset button, and yes, it'll be a new start, but they've got to sort that dressing room out and got to get some more out of the players. I keep hearing a lot about De Zerbi. I keep hearing that everybody wants De Zerbi, that all the clubs that are out there, that he's the guy that everybody wants. And, I do think there are issues at Brighton, but, he's been without Enciso all season. Evan Ferguson's been missing quite a lot this season. He lost his 2 best midfielders in the summer, but he's still got Brighton competitive. So maybe he is the next big thing. I don't know. We won't know until he gets that chance. And I think rather than take a chance on Tuchel, who, let's be honest, had a difficult time at Chelsea under a new regime, it lasted about 5 minutes because he didn't think they knew what they were doing. So if he has a similar situation at United with the new regime, it could be fireworks. So I'd go for De Zerbi and the chance that for once United get a guy on the way up that's actually got something to prove, not Ten Hag, and just give a guy the chance. But like you say, that list isn't an ideal list. I wouldn't go for Potter. I think Potter failed at Chelsea, a similar job, similar scenario, similar dressing room. So I'd go for De Zerbi and, eyes closed, fingers crossed, and see what happens next.
I think
a really positive thought.
Come on!
I hope your pilot's got a better outlook.
Not on that skinny runway.
This is the captain speaking, eyes closed.
Fingers crossed, everyone.
Fingers crossed. Oh, but arguably the best coach in England, not in England, out with Klopp and Guardiola, the best one that's not on that list, that's probably ungettable, is Unai Emery.
Yeah.
Unai Emery, he's a bit of everything. His sides play good football, but don't try and overplay. He works on the team shape. You can tell he works on patterns of play and team shape, and he's got experience.
Would you be tempted to go if you were him?
That's a difficult one. I mean, Aston Villa, they're a great story at the moment. I mean, they've been former European champions, a big club, but it's still Man United. But then does he want it? I'm not suggesting he's even thinking about it, or they want him. But would he want to jump out of that into that fire at Man United? He got bumped a bit at Arsenal.
I was going to say, would he be frightened of the Arsenal experience?
Yeah, he got bumped at Arsenal, but he's got experience. I mean, he's been successful in Spain.
But his English is much better. One of the reasons he failed at Arsenal is because he didn't come across particularly well with the press, and the players didn't quite understand what he was trying to do. He's come a long way with his English since then, and I think he'd be a much better coach. And
he did a great job. I mean, wherever he's been, he's generally done a great job. Arsenal was a difficult one at Arsenal at the time. It took Arteta a while to turn it round. But you look at not just what he's done with Villa, but what he did with Villarreal. You look at Villarreal now. Villarreal, how many have they had since he left?
You could throw like he's been in charge of two big clubs, in Arsenal and PSG, and he didn't do anything at either of them. So why would Manchester United feel that he could do...
I know, but I'm only throwing them in there.
There's not that many managers you can keep talking about.
No, that's completely...
Manchester United cannot go after the top tier.
Yes.
And that's the reality of Manchester United.
What about Zinedine Zidane?
Yes. Did I tell you he's not going to Manchester? Well, they cannot go after top tier, and so you have to go for the up-and-comer and hoping that that's a guy, here we go.
Who would be De Zerbi?
De Zerbi had a great spell. Was it in Ukraine or was it in Russia when he
Ukraine,
where I think he won 20 out of 20 games at one point. So he has been at a big club that were in the Champions League.
I'm sure that if you're making the decision on a manager to come to Manchester United, you're not thinking about what he did in Ukraine and however elitist.
But I think if De Zerbi was where sort of Villa are at the moment, and that had continued, and he was really sort of the apple of everybody's eye, as he has been in patches, but it's kind of waned a little bit, and I think if he'd been up there, it would have been an easier sell for the club. I just think at the moment all those names are quite a difficult sell.
What would it take for Ten Hag to still be in charge at the start of the season, Mark?
He has to get in the Champions League, and it's looking very difficult to do that. I don't think winning the FA Cup and finishing 5th or 6th will be enough. I think it's deeper than that with Ten Hag. I think, a lot of it isn't working at United. The players don't look happy. Some of them aren't happy. We know that. The tactics, like I said, the results have been poor. The goal difference is terrible. They're on -2. It's Man United. They've got all this great attacking talent. So it's not just about injuries that they've had. They've had a really bad run of everything. So I don't know. A new regime comes in. It's very rare that a new regime comes in football and doesn't change the manager within 6 months. I mean, it's hard to find a club that hasn't had that kind of turnover. So I don't think anything really can save Ten Hag, apart from possibly the financial element, in the sense that it will cost them around £14 million to move him on. £14 million. You're talking about £12 million to get De Zerbi. All of a sudden, that's £26 million, and then, that's a player. And United need a lot of players, and they've got to get rid of a few this summer as well. So it could come down to basic economics, but it wouldn't be great if United keep a manager because they can't afford to get rid of him. That isn't a great message to send at the start of a new era. So I think Ten Hag goes this summer, but they have got a big problem finding the right guy to replace him because, as you guys have discovered, there's not an obvious candidate out there.
Just put £1.25 billion of investment in, with more to come. They're not going to do that and keep a guy who is becoming clearer and clearer is not cut for this job.
Sorry, they'll sell Anthony for £100 million. Boom, there's your money.
Well, when he sits there and says Anthony will come good, amongst the many, many things as Robbo has mentioned, and we've sat here since day one of this Premier League season, and he has rabbited on with some of the biggest nonsense. Instead of just coming out and telling it straight, and we could all sit here, and the media boys and the guys that write the headlines in the back of the papers could say, OK, that's fair enough. Yeah. It's fair enough, not good enough or that or that. But he's come out and, oh, my God, you've only got to have smitten of common sense to see that he's talking absolute nonsense. He's gone.
Of course, the last chance for a bit of silverware for Manchester United is the FA Cup. We're at the quarter-final stages, a competition that you can see live on ESPN+. March 16th, Wolves against Coventry, then it's Manchester City against Newcastle, followed by Chelsea against Leicester, and then Manchester United against Liverpool.